What's up guys, your boy Kid Nerd here, back with another video for yous. And today we're going into a crazy case. I don't want to drag out this intro for too long, but I actually made a Patreon. I put the link in the description, and it's just a way that all you guys can support me, which will then result into more content. A couple people asked me to set up, so yeah, click the Patreon link in my description. And obviously, we have our Amazon gift card giveaway. If you don't know already, I'm giving away a £50 Amazon gift card every video. And all you have to do is follow my Insta. Should be on the screen now. And yeah, I'm picking a follower every video. Just a way to give back to you guys. But today's winner is, drum rolls please, Tempany Kane. So if that's you, reach out to me on Insta and receive your £50 gift card. Anyway, let's get into the video. So today, we're going to Manchester, where we have seen a tragic example of privileged kids getting involved in stuff that they shouldn't. It has resulted in the tragic death of a young man with a bright future. So this privileged kid I'm talking about is a guy called Joshua Mona. He went to a £12,000 a year private school and lived in the posh suburbs of Greater Manchester, in the village of Hell, which is around 12 miles from the centre of Manchester, where many of his peers were going to reaching the best grades and entering the top unis in the UK. Joshua had a different plan. He instead wanted to be a drug dealer and be carrying around knives. You know them kids that probably sell a 3.5 a Star Dog every day and then smoke away any profits they've made, waiting on their dad's money to reload? That's the type of person we're dealing with here. Now this guy's family was very rich. His dad was a director of a successful company and his mum owned a chain of nurseries, so they were really some go-getters, while Josh from young felt disconnected with his family and would even run away from home sometimes, he said. But yeah, from young, his peers in school have always said he's been a troublemaker, keeping a tough guy image for his private school classmates, and got kicked out of his school after being caught with cannabis. But at age 15 was when he started carrying around weapons with him, and started to live a fantasy life of what he's seen from other people on social media. But I'm gonna get into all that later. And then we have a young man called Yusuf Maki, who was a bursary student at the Manchester's Grammar School, which if you haven't heard of it, is one of UK's leading independent schools in the whole country. Yusuf wasn't like Josh. He grew up in the council estate in an area called Burnage in Manchester, so pretty much came from the bottom but was extremely smart. So he actually won the right to go to an independent school with no fees. All his mum had to do was pay for the uniform, which he even struggled to do. Yusuf's plan after grammar school was to go study medicine or finance at Oxford or Cambridge, which are the leading universities not only in the UK but in the whole world, which would have been an easy path to get a good job and get his family out the hood pretty much. But just like Josh, it seemed like Yusuf was getting involved in stuff that he shouldn't, and while at Manchester Grammar School, naturally started meeting more well-off people, the type of people that could afford the £13,000 a year fee, unlike himself. So while he'll be spending his weekdays studying in his council estate in Burnage, on the weekends he'll be partying with Manchester's richest, kids of multimillionaires in mansions, and more than likely a lot of class A drugs flying about. Through these parties, Josh and Yusuf began to be friends. So it was the first weekend of March 2019, and Yusuf was staying at one of his rich friends' houses when that friend started to show off a flick knife that he just bought through the app Wish. And it's crazy how accessible knives still are through the web, that you can easily buy a zombie killer knife through certain websites and get it delivered straight to your door. Like, I know a lot of people like to collect knives and see it as a novelty, but there needs to be some sort of filter for this. But anyway, Yusuf and his other friend were cycling to an upmarket grocery store called Booths, where they met up with Josh and then smoked weed in the underground car park. At this time, Josh and the other boy had knives on them, and the other boy was showing off his flick knives to Josh, and then gave Josh one of his flicks. No one really knows if Yusuf also had a knife on him. Like, there's no evidence he did, but who actually knows? His mum said he was very against knives, but that still doesn't really mean that he didn't have a knife on him. After smoking in the car park, one of the boys called their dealers to deliver £45 worth of cannabis, and the dealer pulled up to the boys in his VW grey Polo car. But whatever happened in the deal, it resulted in the two dealers jumping out of their car and beating up Josh, while Yusuf and his other friend ran away. The dealer said that the three boys were robbing him, which isn't 100% confirmed. It's a bit of a weird flex anyway, to try and rob £45 worth of weed. Yeah, they could have at least lined a Z or something. As I said, Star Dog is killing my people. But after that altercation, all three boys met up again, and from Josh's accounts, Yusuf was trying to persuade Josh to stay out, but obviously Josh just got rushed, so he was trying to go back home. They eventually started arguing, when Yusuf then pushed Josh and started swearing at him. Josh then stabbed Yusuf in the heart, causing him to bleed to death. Obviously, this is from Josh's point of view, so it's probably not all factual, and obviously we can't get Yusuf's point of view, because well, he's dead. But Josh said that Yusuf pulled out a knife on Josh before Josh stabbed him, so he was pulling the self-defense card essentially. Whether Yusuf did pull out the knife or not, who knows. A private security guard noticed noticed the altercation, and Josh asked a security guard for help, saying his friend has been stabbed, and initially told the guard and police that the person who stabbed Yusuf was a man in a VW Polo, so essentially tried to blame the stabbing on the guy that rushed him, which is very sus from the beginning, because if it was a case where Yusuf did pull out a knife on Josh and then Josh defended himself, he is well in his rights. I do understand, yeah, you have to give the benefit of the doubt that he's young and was probably scared, so he said anything to make himself not look guilty, but the next day, Josh and his friend agreed to make up a whole storyline that Yusuf had been stabbed by somebody else, which does look hella sus to still keep that narrative after you've had time to think and take it in. And I don't agree with it at all, but I do understand how and why he would do this. Like, Josh was 17, he's probably never been in a real situation in his whole life and was just stressing. But either way, the other friend wasn't trying to go out like that. He straight up said he didn't see nothing about the stabbing. In all honesty, it's probably the best thing he could have done. This was an A-B situation between Josh and Yusuf. He's not trying to lie for his friend and then get caught up with perverting the course of justice, and probably wasn't trying to snitch on Josh as well. So after this, Josh was charged with the murder of Yusuf and conspiracy to rob a drug dealer, which he denied. So this case went to trial and everything, which lasted 4 weeks. Now I think this trial has to be one of the biggest cases of rich white privilege I've ever seen, to be honest. Yusuf's own family was even forced to sit in the public gallery, which was screened off from the court, so they couldn't hear anything that was happening in the court unless you had the headset, but there wasn't enough to go around the whole family, so they would have to take turns listening in. The reason for this was because the court believed Yusuf's family presence would intimidate Josh. Like, that is so ridiculous. The mother didn't even get the chance to look her son's killer in the eyes and actually be there for the moment that would pretty much make or break the rest of her life. Long story short, Josh was acquitted for the murder and manslaughter of Yusuf due to self-defense, because Josh claimed that Yusuf had pulled the knife out on Josh before he stabbed Yusuf. As I said, I wasn't there, so obviously I can't really give a judgment whether that was the case or not, but in my personal opinion, this case was rigged, to the point that Yusuf's character from Josh's accounts were used against him in court. As Josh said, Yusuf was quite aggressive and would often talk about shanks, which are nice if you don't know, but there was no evidence for any of this. If anything, there was evidence for Yusuf's good character, with him helping peers with homework all the time and even helping a friend with suicide. But altogether, we wasn't there at the time of the stabbing, so we don't really know what fully happened that day, but we can make some judgments on how it led to this, and there were many defenses for Josh which I think were just ridiculous. So Josh and his friends were massive fans of drill music, and just like what we see with a lot of these privileged kids who have never been in a real situation in their life, they started to live sort of a fantasy life of what they were seeing in these drill videos and were rolling around with knives when they most definitely did not need to, and started smoking weed and rolling around in some sort of gang. I know a lot of people disagree with me when I say drill music influences people, but this is a prime example of how it does. Like, despite Josh and his friends probably living in one of the most peaceful areas in Manchester and being kids of multi-millionaires, they would still want to replicate the life they're seeing in drill music, like carrying knives and trapping. Well, this is actually used in Josh's defense, that his mind was corrupted from drill music, which, even though I understand why that would happen, that is not an excuse in any way. If you carry a knife and do the crime, I don't agree that you could use music as a cop-out, and there's been many cases where drill music has been used against people in lower income areas, so why is it any different for Josh? Like, it is just reality though, that people want to follow the music that they're listening to, just like how rock and roll fans do some brazy stuff. And I'm pretty sure a lot of my viewers are also doing this. I'm even seeing people in my comments talking about this and that about gangs, like they're involved. So this is a daily reminder, if you're one of them people in my comments, that you are not involved, just like how I'm not involved, because I do think some people need a constant reminder that they come from a good home, as ridiculous as it sounds. Even while the whole trial was taking place, Josh was spotted playing the drill song called Niner Ting by East London rappers KO and Unknown T, and Snapchatting himself listening to it while making stabbing gestures, and singing along to the lyrics like 2 shanks, let's see who bleeds. Like, honestly, what reality is this guy living in? You're on a murder case where you're looking at potentially some serious time, and he's still listening to what got him there in the first place. Then the next minute he's crying to the prosecutors while giving evidence, while his lawyers are saying that his mind must have been corrupted from drill music. Like, it's just a complete juxtaposition. Not only this, but Joshua had a serious history with knives. Youth witnesses said on multiple occasions that Joshua would just show off his knives and enjoyed threatening and scaring people with the knives. In one occasion at a party, people said Joshua pulled out a knife in the middle of an argument and thrived under everyone being scared of him showing off his knife. Like, if this doesn't show that he was too quick to be pulling out knives, then I don't know what is. And I really do wish people like this could be put in a real situation for once in their life, with real gang members, just to humble them. I think the UK needs a Beyond Scared Straight program at this point, where them kids get put in an adult prison for a week in America, so they know what type of people they could be messing with if they carry on this stuff. And it's just sad when you put yourself in the position of the mum of Yusuf, that her son's death was just being pushed away as a product of drill music, and not getting the closure she probably needed, especially after the prosecution pretty much told Yusuf's family that a guilty verdict was inevitable for Josh. I don't wish prison on anyone, but I just really feel sad for Yusuf's mum, who started to dedicate her life to campaigning for a retrial and justice. Even a member of parliament from Manchester called Lucy Powell asked the question, if Josh was a black guy from a wealthy family, would the outcome be the same? And it's a difficult question to answer, because I do believe there was a bit of rich white privilege which helped out Josh and allowed him to get the benefit of the doubt. But we have seen similar cases in gang life in London, like in 2016 after the murder of the rapper Shoki. His killer was a rapper called S from South London in Peckham, who was acquitted for the murder of Shoki due to self-defense. So stuff like this does happen, but altogether, as I said before, it was most definitely the money from Josh's family that helped him with the case. Like, Josh's mum put thousands of pounds into the campaign, and his mum would constantly be appearing in interviews where she would kind of play the sympathy card, saying that her family has been going through a lot and the whole case has broke the family, which is quite insensitive considering her son is still alive and Yusuf isn't. Like, I do understand how the case can be very damaging to Josh's family, but the pain is incomparable. And if she was that hurt, I don't think she'll be able to appear in as many interviews as she done. Like, the family even hired a whole PR team to shine bright lights on Josh's name essentially, and even spent so much on the lawyer that Josh even moved into the lawyer's house for the period. Now, if that's not screaming a different type of privilege, then I don't know what is. Joshua did serve some time for this though, for the possession of a knife and lying to the police that somebody else was the person that killed Yusuf, which he served at a youth offenders institute for 8 months, where you could enjoy the benefits of a phone in your cell, access to emails and anything he wanted from Argos. He was even allowed out on day release so he could visit his family before Christmas. Like, is this meant to be a hotel or a prison? Because this is just sounding like a free getaway to me, to be honest. The saddest thing about this situation as well is Yusuf's mum did not manage to see justice and never will. She actually passed away last year from illness at age 55, and I have no doubt that her son's death probably played part in the illness. So rest in peace to Yusuf and his mum, and I pray they receive eternal peace. But anyway, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know other stories that you want to see. It's been your boy Kid Nerd, and peace out.